Mr. Meron, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you for inviting me.
The reason of your visit to Sarajevo this time is participation in the conference on the prosecution of genocide in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And the fact that you're here is a sign that this is an important conference. Can you please tell us more about the purpose of this event?
The central to this conference is, of course, dealing with the crime of genocide. And I have the great honor to have presided in the ICTY over the first appeal in the case of genocide, the case of appeal of General Kerstic. This was the first case where we determined that the events in Srebrenica amounted to genocide.
But you are aware that some judgments relating to the crime of genocide allowed many ambiguities to remain. For example, the tribunal's position stated in a judgment in Ratko Mladić case relating to the Prijedor area. The ICTY found the existence of the elements of the genocide and genocidal intent, but also held that those victims did not form a substantial part of the protected group. My question for you is
now, let me interrupt you. Yes, a very experienced journalist. You know, I cannot speak about a specific case. I cannot particularly speak on a specific case where the appeal, the panel for the appeal of Mladić case.
I won't ask you about
has been
specific...
formed, and I am presiding it. So you don't expect me to speak about the Mladić case.
I just want to ask you what number, according to the tribunal, would form a substantial part in order to call it genocide? Because that was the question, main question after that verdict.
Well, it's again, the only thing that I can tell you about it, because since I sit on those cases, you will realize I will not want to go into specific, whether you put it in terms of past practice or a principle for the future. The principle established by Kerstic and Tolimir cases, where of course that when the convention speaks about part of a group, you remember that the Genocide Convention prohibits certain acts against a number of protected groups, either groups targeted in whole or in part. And the words in part have been interpreted as amounting to a substantial part. I need not tell you that in the Kerstic case, we determined that the people in the Srebrenica area amounted to a substantial part. So I am answering your question by relying on the Kerstic case, but I am not answering it in abstracto because that's not my job.
But we also already concluded that your verdict can be very important for the future.
But we did it in a way that courts can apply, and courts always apply the law to the facts and the context before them. We established enough principles in Kerstic and Tolimir to make it easier for courts in the future to apply.
I understand, but let me put it this way, very simply. Can this judgment or assessment of the court can be dangerous for the future events, for the future conflicts?
Dangerous?
Yes.
Why?
Maybe for the future conflicts, because of the message it sends, or the future rulings, court rulings maybe.
I don't think so. Why? Tell me why could it be dangerous?
Because this is practice, and all the judgments later on maybe rely on this decision.
Well, I think that the findings, the rulings in Kerstic and Tolimir were the correct rulings, and of course correct rulings will be applied and interpreted in the future by reasonable courts, which will apply them to the situations which come up, to the context. It's a normal sort of play of international jurisprudence. You have new facts, you have new situations, you take the law, and you apply the law to those new situations fairly. I have no doubt.
Anyways, this case will eventually be concluded by the mechanism which is already in function.
Which one? The
Mladić case.
Mladić.
Yes. Mladić case. And
That's correct.
I am sure that you would rather to avoid the questions on Šešelj case.
I can always not answer,
you have to understand that I cannot skip it, Mr. Meron. That case is most controversial case of the ICTY, and when we considered everything that happened during the process, from Šešelj's behavior in the courtroom, disqualification of a judge, and the judgment itself in the end, has that case tarnished the reputation of the court?
I don't think so. If you look at the national cases, you have so many cases also in national jurisdictions which have a sort of, shall I say, unusual history. But I think that you should look more at the appeal judgment which was rendered last week. I told you I will not be speaking about cases, but specifically, but it's a case based very, very strongly and totally on the facts and on the law, and it's a case which I think already now shows that it has obtained very broad support.
Have you heard of Šešelj's comments on the appeals judgment?
Indirectly, I'm not worried about what Mr. Šešelj.
Just one more question, please. You're trying to interrupt us. Just one question, please. I will tell you, he said that he's proud of the crimes and he's ready to do it again. And my question is, what's the point of the verdict then, Mr. Meron?
Mr. Šešelj, I am not going to comment on Mr. Šešelj. It's not my role, and I don't think you would like to comment on what he's saying. I think that the judgment speaks for itself, and Mr. Šešelj has been found convicted and approved by the appeals court for crimes against humanity and for ethnic cleansing, and has been given a sentence of 10 years. And those things, much more than what Mr. Šešelj can say today or might say tomorrow, speak to the international community.
And to conclude this interview, when can we expect final judgments in the case of Karadzic and Mladić?
Depending on the hearings, depending on deliberations, I would aim without committing myself at December or even of 2018. I usually try to finish my cases on time or before time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming.
Jazeera. Thank you.